All right, so today we're going to be ranking the top 10 players in the NBA based off the 2024 NBA season. And yes, this is part 2 of a series we already started where we're actually ranking the top 25 players in the NBA. So if you want to see part 1, which is 25 through 11, there's going to be a link in the description. But like I said in part 1, this is solely based off the 2024 NBA season. This has nothing to do with these guys' career accolades outside of this year. We're solely looking at 2024 and ranking them based off that. Let's get into the list right now. All right, so coming in at number 10, we have Anthony Davis. So I feel like over the past couple of years, if you would have asked the Lakers fans, what's the number one reason why this team just can't seem to get it right? I know they made the conference final last year, but overall, been kind of a disappointment since the bubble. Well, I think majority of Lakers fans would have told you it's just Anthony Davis's health. When he plays, he's really good, but his availability has been a big issue. That was not the case in 2024. Anthony Davis had probably the healthiest season I can remember. I mean, obviously with the Pelicans, he played a lot, but 76 games this year. I did not even think that that was possible for Anthony Davis, especially at this point in his career with all the injuries he's racked up. But he was really healthy this year, and yet somehow the Lakers were still a play-in team. That's a separate issue for another day, but Anthony Davis individually was incredible this season. Let's take a look at his numbers. 25 points per game, 13 rebounds per game, and 4 assists per game. He shot 56 from the field, 27 from behind the arc. You'd like to see that a little higher. He also averaged a steal a game and a great 2 blocks per game. So I think Anthony Davis right now, if you want to make the argument that Anthony Davis is the best defensive player in basketball, I'm willing to listen to that argument. I don't think it's true. I think Victor Wembanyama is actually the most impactful defensive player in the NBA. But if you want to make the argument for Anthony Davis, there is a clear argument there. If he's not 1, he's 2 or 3. He's on the top 3 of the best defensive players in the world while also giving you 25 on a night-in, night-out basis. He's one of the best just all-around players in the NBA right now. And coming off a really healthy year, I think he definitely deserves to be in the top 10. And at number 9, we have Jayson Tatum. Obviously, just won a title with the Celtics this year. I don't know if you can call him the clear leader of that Celtics team because Jaylen Brown got all the hardware. He got the conference final MVP, and he got the finals MVP. So when we look back on this finals run, like 15, 20 years down the line, are people going to be saying this was Jaylen Brown's team because he won the MVPs? I don't know. That's a conversation for another day. But I think just from a pure talent standpoint, Jayson Tatum is a superior player than Jaylen Brown. He's a better dribbler. He's a better shooter. I think he's a better defender at points. He's just as athletic, if not better, than Jaylen Brown, and he's just taller, so he can wreak more havoc on the defensive side of the ball. Let's take a look at Jayson Tatum's numbers from this past season. He played 74 games, averaging 27, 8, and 5. He shot 47% from the field and 38 from behind the arc. He averaged a steal a game and 0.6 blocks per game. So similar to what we just said about Anthony Davis, that one word comes up, and it is versatility. I always tend to like these Swiss Army knife type players, and that is what Jayson Tatum has really grown into as one of the most well-refined players in the entire NBA. And at number 8, we have LeBron James. At the ripe age of 39, is still a top 10 player in the NBA right now. What he's doing right now at his age, still being this good, I don't know if we're ever going to see anything like this ever again in the history of sports. This is fucking crazy what LeBron is doing at the age of 39. You look at how he played 5 years ago, athletically, still dunking on people, and you compare it to now, it's the same. It's like he hasn't really aged that much. I mean, he's the thing that I noticed with LeBron, and the reason why he's no longer the best player in the world or a top 5 player for me anymore, the reason why is because prime LeBron could athletically take over any given game on both sides of the ball. He was the best athlete on the planet, arguably, and could just physically destroy an opposing team. He could just flip a switch. That is where I noticed LeBron's aging, because he's still really good. He's still so well-rounded, but I feel like he doesn't have that switch anymore where he can just turn it on and physically dominate an opposing team, which makes a lot of sense because the guy's 39 years old. But even without his overall ridiculous, physically imposing superpowers like he had, when he was in Cleveland, when he was in Miami. Even though he doesn't have all that, he's still such a great player. I mean, let's take a look at his numbers. 71 games played this year. He averaged 26 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, and 8 assists per game. I think you can still also make the case that he's still one of the best passers in the NBA. He's definitely on a short list for that. And just an incredible, efficient year from LeBron. 54 from the field and 41% from three. I mean, think about how people viewed LeBron in the past as a three-point shooter. He's come such a long way to now he is actually an elite three-point shooter. He also averaged a steal a game and a block every other game. So incredibly dominant year. Will Father Time ever catch up with this guy? I don't know. At number 7, we have Steph Curry, and I think this is the first time since I've been watching basketball, about 8-9 years now, that I've ever put point guards above Steph Curry. You know, for basically my entire stretch of watching basketball, Steph Curry has been the best point guard in the association. This is the first time where I actually have 2 point guards above him. And just from a talent perspective, I still think you can make the argument that Steph is better than these guys. But like I said at the beginning of the video, this is solely based off 2024. This is not talking about in a vacuum or any of that. We're grading them based off of what they did in 2024. And I think the couple point guards I have above Steph, they objectively had better years. And even though Steph is my favorite player of all time, I think I would be kind of naive trying to argue that just based on this season alone. But Steph still had an incredible year. He played 74 games this year, 26 points per game, 5 rebounds per game, 5 assists per game. Of course, it's Steph. We know the efficiency is going to be there, 45% from the field and 41 from behind the arc, and he also averaged a steal per game. Now, going forward, we're definitely going to be making a couple videos about what the Warriors are going to look like next year. As a Warriors fan, I am kind of scared what the roster looks like right now, and especially some of these trade rumors with Lauri Markkanen. You know, I'm gonna make a video about all that stuff in the next couple of days. But based off 2024, I think Steph Curry is still easily a top 10 player in basketball. I mean, he's what's the most important thing in today's NBA offense? 3-point shots. Who's the best 3-point shooter? Steph, and it's by a country mile. He's still by far the best shooter in the game, and that's why he's so high. And at number 6, we have Steph's former teammate, Kevin Durant. I get this feeling that there are people out there that feel like Kevin Durant is like out of his prime. Kevin Durant is still a fucking monster on the basketball court. He's still incredible. I just think it's extremely unfortunate how Kevin Durant's career has played out these past couple of years because he's one of the 15 best players to ever touch a basketball, in my opinion. But since leaving the Warriors, his career has been a fucking shit show. We did a video about it a while back. Maybe I can make a new updated version of it where I just talk about Kevin Durant's career post-Warriors and how big of a mess it's been. Because as of this point in time right now, the Phoenix Suns, I hate to say it, I think they're honestly kind of irrelevant right now. Like, when you look at the contending teams in the Western Conference, if you just made a list, where would the Suns rank on that? Like, you're taking the Thunder, the Mavs, the Nuggets, the Wolves. That's 4 teams right there. And then I think you can make some arguments as to a couple other teams that would be, the Grizzlies are going to be back. The Pelicans are better. The Kings just got DeMar. So the Suns could realistically be a play-in team next year. And I know we're supposed to be talking about KD, not the Suns as a whole, but it goes into a bigger narrative of, I just feel bad for how his career's played out because this is generally one of the best players of all time. And to just see him kind of fade away into irrelevancy while he's still so good is just such a crying shame. And he just should have never left the Warriors. Let's take a look at his numbers. He played 75 games this year. So you look back to Brooklyn. A big reason why those Brooklyn teams would always kind of self-implode when he was there is because he would always get injured right around like All-Star break and miss a bunch of time, and the team would kind of fall apart whenever he was gone. That was not the case this year. He played 75 games, so this is one of the more healthy Kevin Durant seasons of recent memory. He averaged 27 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, and 5 assists per game. And his efficiency, this is what just fucking melts my brain with Kevin Durant, is how efficient this guy is with the style of basketball he plays. He shot 52% from the field. I don't think you guys understand how ridiculous that is for a guy who his entire game is based around shooting tough jump shots over defenders. That's Kevin Durant's bread and butter. He's shooting contested jump shots. That's the majority of his game, and he shot 52% from the field. That is fucking insane. 41% from behind the arc. So just as efficient as Steph Curry from behind the arc. insane. He also averaged a steal a game and a block per game. So people want to talk about KD's out of his prime. These numbers, they would disagree. And Kevin Durant was the only player that showed up for the Phoenix Suns in that dreadful performance against the Timberwolves. You know, Devin Booker was good in Game 4, but outside of that, no one else showed up for the Phoenix Suns in that sweep that they suffered at the hands of the Minnesota Timberwolves. So all that rambling just to say Kevin Durant is still one of the best in the world. It's unfortunate what he's done in his career path. We'll be making a video about that soon. Kicking off the top 5, we have Shai GilgeousAlexander. So like I said earlier, in a vacuum, I'm still probably taking Steph Curry, but based off of the 2024 NBA season, I think Shai GilgeousAlexander was better than Steph Curry. He was the better overall player this past year and was the guy that I think should have won the Most Valuable Player award. Now, you might be like, you only put him at 5. Like, how can he be your MVP pick? Well, that just kind of just shows you how weird the MVP award is, because it's not just based on who the best player was. They also factor in stats. They factor in your narrative. And I think SGA had the strongest narrative argument out of all the MVP candidates in the fact that he led the youngest team in the playoffs this year to be the 1 seed in a fucking cutthroat Western Conference. The fact that he did that alone while averaging what he did, having the most 30-point games of any player in the NBA. He was the most consistent scorer in the NBA this year. SGA should have been MVP. I think that that's a crime that he did not get that award. Let's take a look at his numbers. 75 games played this year. He averaged 36-6, shot 54% from the field, 35 from behind the arc. He also averaged 2 steals per game and a block per game. So, like I said, should have been the MVP. I honestly think they robbed SGA this year. I think that was his award. And at number 4, we have Joel Embiid. So we went from the guy I think should have won MVP to the guy who would have won MVP had he not gotten injured. I think he would have easily won MVP this year had he played enough games to qualify for it. Number 1, he was playing better this year than his MVP season. Like, he was better in every single category than his MVP year. So I think he would have won back-to-back. And he also had the narrative part of the MVP thing on his side. Like we said, for MVP, you not only have to terrorize other teams and destroy them, but you also have to kind of have a storyline going for you. And Joel Embiid had that because James Harden just got out of the team, and they were fucking better without Harden. They were better. They were doing better. They were one of the most efficient teams of all time. Like, I don't know. I don't get into the analytical shit. I don't understand it, but net rating, apparently they ranked top 10 all time. Not just top 10 in the league that year. Top 10 team of all time in net rating was that Sixers team this year before Joel Embiid got hurt due to the duo of Maxey and Embiid. Let's take a look at Embiid's monstrous numbers. So 39 games played, obviously that's the biggest, glaring hole with Embiid is the games he misses. But like we said, we're only ranking this based off of when they played. Let's take a look at his numbers when he did play. 35 points per game, 11 rebounds per game, and 6 assists per game. 53% from the field, 39% from behind the arc. He averaged a steal per game and also 1.7 blocks per game. So just a nasty season he was having. He was insane to start off this year, and it's just a shame he got hurt yet again. But things are optimistic in Philly after signing Paul George. We made a video talking all about the Paul George signing, so you can go check that out. We'll be making a bunch of videos about the Sixers going forward in the offseason. And at number 3, we have Giannis Antetokounmpo. I feel like he kind of had an under-the-radar type season. Like, not a lot of people talking about Giannis this year. I think that that's because the Bucks had such a mess of a season, firing their coach, Adrian Griffin, when he had a record of 30-13. They were a good team. And then after he was fired, they brought in Doc Rivers and went 500 with Doc Rivers. So clearly a mistake firing that guy. I don't know why they did it. I can speculate as to why, but we're here just to talk about Giannis individually. He had an MVP level year. I mean, his numbers were that dominant. He played 73 games this year, averaged 30 points per game, 12 rebounds per game, and 7 assists per game. Incredible. 61% from the field, 27% from behind the arc. Obviously, that's not great, but it's Giannis. What do you expect? He also averaged a steal a game and a block per game. So I still think on any given night, Giannis can be the best player in the world. It wasn't that long ago, probably just like a year ago, where I widely considered Giannis to be the best player in basketball, because from a physical standpoint, I think you can make the case he's the best athlete in the NBA just for his frame. He has such a unique body type, being that fucking strong and just being able to crush people in the paint, and also the defense he brings. It's kind of like what we talked about earlier with LeBron, how he could use his ridiculous physical athletic superpowers to take over any game. That's kind of what Giannis is right now, and that's why he's so high on this list. The second best player from the 2024 NBA season was this year's MVP, Nikola Jokic, who's now a 3-time NBA MVP and an NBA champion, a Finals MVP. So that resume, I think he's entered a new tier where we no longer talk about how good he is in the confines of today's game. We now need to start talking about Jokic as just simply an all-time player, because I made that video back in December where I ranked the top 25 players of all time. I didn't have Jokic on that list. Well, I'm going to have to update it now because he should have been on that. Probably just slipped my mind back then. He's easily a top 25 player of all time now with that resume, 3 MVPs and a ring, and one of the most unicorn-type players we've ever seen. So let me know down in the comments, where do you rank Nikola Jokic all time? Because I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on that. Let's take a look at his third MVP stat line. He played 79 games this year. He averaged 26 points per game, 12 rebounds per game, and 9 assists per game. That's just fucking insane, that stat line right there. He also shot 58% from the field, 36% from behind the arc. He averaged a steal and a block per game. And the best player in the NBA from the 2024 NBA season was Luka Doncic. I think start to finish, Luka was the best player this entire year. Similar to what we said about SGA, he's another guy I think had a better case for MVP than the actual guy who won the award. Luka, it was just a matter of time for him to become the best player in basketball, and I think he did that this year, leading the Dallas Mavericks to the NBA Finals, where he was clearly the best player on the floor in that entire Finals. There were people even talking about giving him the Finals MVP, even though the Mavs lost that series. His second star just didn't show up. Kyrie did not show up for the Finals, and that kind of did the Mavs in. I mean, they were already in an uphill battle against that Celtics team because of how stacked they were. But Kyrie not showing up basically destroyed the Mavs, and that's why that Finals really did end up sucking, because it wasn't really close at all. But Luka, for the entirety of 2024, monstrous season. Let's take a look at his stats. 70 games. He averaged 34 points per game, 9 rebounds per game, and 10 assists per game. That's an insane stat line. And he also shot 49% from the field. Again, similar to what we said about KD, this is a guy in Luka where majority of his game is predicated on tough jump shots, step-back jumpers, mid-range, all that stuff. And the fact that he's so efficient will always melt my brain. And he also shot 38% from behind the arc. He also averaged a steal per game. So that is my top 10. I'm sure everyone 100% agrees with me. But honestly, yeah, go ahead and let me know down in the comments what you thought of the list. Do you think I'm a moron? Did you like the list? Let me know your rankings. And if you made it this far, I really appreciate you listening to me ramble. Please like and subscribe to the channel.